I think what it is that, like I say, the background of the music.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's in you, and maybe what you've been around.
Mhm.
And the first time I wrote a song was 7. Don't ask me why I decided I wanted to write a song at 7 years old, but
Mm.
I did write a song, and it was like that kind of stuff was happening. I was singing around, imitating the people that were older than me, but that I had seen, growing up. I remember writing the song I wrote. The very first song I wrote was a gospel song. I can't remember. It was some kind of a
Mm.
song for God, but
Mhm.
it wasn't a church day. I was over my grandmother's house and I just wrote something
Mhm.
and then, sung it in front of them and everything. But the
Wow.
inspiration of music and writing is something I've always had a passion for.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our spiritual podcast. I am your host, Barbara, and we are here to share stories from people from all walks of life. And if you want to keep updated when we do post new content, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. And check out our link in our bio. And remember to click the little ding bell to be notified when we do post new content. And once again, thank you so much for being here and supporting our channel. We greatly appreciate it. Music is a big part of our culture. Music is a big part of our world and how we live, how we express ourselves. And it's always so important to have something uplifting and encouraging when you are feeling some type of way. Yet, how many of us really think about the spiritual side of music and how it influences us and how it shapes different ways of thinking and perspectives that we have? Whether you're someone who plays music or just likes to listen to music just for fun, this episode is for you. Welcome to our spiritual podcast. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of our spiritual podcast. I am so honored to have you guys all here to join me here in the studio, wherever we're at. So we have a special guest here today, and I am going to allow him to introduce himself to you, and then we're going to get right into it. So, without further ado, you have the
Okay,
airwaves.
hello, my name is Dimitrius Price, and me and my family do have I guess you call it a ministry, a music ministry, and we go around to different churches at this point and we perform and present music, and hopefully someone is blessed.
Yes, nice. So, I met you at the Black History Month event. About like it's been like 3 weeks now, right? So I've been
Yes,
about 3 weeks ago,
that's
and I
right.
was like so impressed with you and your family, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. They all play music. So what are the instruments that you guys all play? What
Okay,
are some of the
so
instruments?
so it starts off with my wife. She plays the bass clarinet.
Mm.
Everybody thinks it's a saxophone, but it's a bass clarinet.
Mm.
Then my daughter plays the clarinet with her,
Mhm.
and they all play other instruments. She also plays the bass guitar. Um, my youngest son, plays the piano
Mhm.
with us, and then there's my other son. He plays the acoustic guitar,
Mhm.
and then my other daughter, she plays the harp, and
Nice.
I play the classical guitar, and we all sing as well as play. So,
That's beautiful. And like the harp is like one of those instruments you don't see too many people playing.
no.
I've seen like the bass clarinet. A lot of people
Hmm.
play that one, and then the acoustic guitar and the piano. But like the harp. So how did she end up getting into playing the harp?
Okay, so she started playing the harp. Actually, it was a gift. It started off with a lap harp, a little toy lap harp
Mhm.
for a birthday gift or a Christmas gift. I can't remember which one, but
Mm.
we got a gift for her, and she used to always ask me to tune it,
Mm.
and I would tune it up. That's how I knew she was playing it. So time
Mm.
went by, and I didn't hear her ask me, to tune it for her anymore. So I
Right.
thought she wasn't playing it anymore.
Mhm.
And so it was like another gift time coming around, I think it was, and I decided, well, maybe if she's still playing, we'll get another lap harp, but we'll get a real one. So I
Okay.
got her a real lap harp, and the store I got it from had harps up there, but I don't know where, but like a voice in my head asked, asked the question, you think she would like to play the real harp?
Mm.
And so, the big one, you know. So
Mhm.
I brought that question to ask the wife, what did she think? Because I didn't know she was even playing a lap harp, to be honest with you. But she did learn to tune it on her own.
Oh.
Because I got the gift when she was like 3 years old.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so this is down the road, like around 12 or 13.
Mhm.
I'm getting her another gift, but it's a real lap harp. So she said, I don't know, ask Josephine, that's my daughter's name, who plays the harp. And so I said, okay, let's go and ask. I asked Josephine, and she hunches her shoulder like, I don't care. And so we just felt impressed to, yeah, let's get her a real harp. So
Yeah.
we got her a harp, a Celtic harp, and she started on that playing it. And I teach music, so I gave her some basic things and the positions,
Mhm.
but I don't play the harp like that. So I decided I would turn it over to someone who could help her better with it.
Mhm.
So I started her with it, even though she wanted me to keep teaching her. I said, no, you need to find somebody who plays the harp better than I do.
Right.
So that's what we did.
Wow.
And she was like a prodigy. She took off well with it, and she played it really good at 13 years old, actually.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's very impressive.
yes.
And that's good to like to stick with it too, because I know sometimes even me, like
Right.
growing up, like I played little instruments here and there, like the flute. I played
Oh, nice.
for a while, but sometimes
That's a good instrument, yeah.
yeah, sometimes you like fall, fall away from playing music and things
Yep.
like that. So sticking with things too. That's a definitely a gift in itself.
Yes, it is.
The music.
It is. That's the gift. I think the gift is actually, it's not so much, you always hear people saying, oh, they're so gifted, and this person is gifted at that and this, but the reality, the gift is that someone loves doing something enough to get good at it. So people that, are gifted, whatever it is they're gifted at, it's because they spent time. It's not like
Right.
some kind of a trick. It's just that they love to do it more than maybe another person would. And so they get better at it. And then when you see it unfold, you're
Yeah.
thinking like, wow, when did they do that? So
Consistency.
so the gift is the love to do something. It's the love, because all of us are born
good.
equal.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that each of us could probably do the same things, but not all of us love the same things.
That's true. Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. Yeah.
That is so true. So what inspired you to become like a musical family in general? 'Cause-
Well, that was not something planned. Initially, we were participating at a church where they had like a music orchestra for the youth, and adults played also, and they had a youth choir. So it was something for the kids basically to keep them, in the right direction. And so three of my kids were actually singing in the choir, the two girls and my youngest son. And my oldest son, I had already taught him some guitar, so he would play with me in this orchestra. They initially asked if I would kind of head it off, but I knew that that's a lot of dedication and time that I didn't think I had. So I'd say I'll participate and help that way, but not take lead in it.
Right.
So that's what happened. And we started doing the orchestra. My wife would play the clarinet, and then we had the youth orchestra. And so they would sing. So they eventually stopped the chorus part. I guess, I don't know what happened, not enough children participated, so there was no more youth choir. So it was
Okay.
just the orchestra. So we couldn't have three of us sitting there playing and then the other children standing around watching, right? So my wife actually taught the younger daughter to play the clarinet.
Oh, okay.
And so she started playing in the orchestra. And by this time, we had already been giving lessons for the harp for my other daughter. So she was playing the harp. Now, my
Wow.
little son, I was teaching him guitar. So all three of us would sit down with the guitar in the orchestra, and he was learning. I just write out things, because I would usually write our parts out, except for the parts for the orchestra. They didn't know how to write the guitar stuff. So I would just write it out for us. And then we play together. So the youth orchestra stopped. And once it stopped, everybody would keep coming to us and saying, since we're a family, and so many of us, why don't you guys play something together? Why don't you guys do something? And I'll be honest, I initially was like, oh no.
You're like,
Now, I've been in several groups growing up in, bands and all that stuff, and I'm just saying that's just way too much work. And I didn't think that would be a good idea. So my youngest son was 6 at the time.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay, go ahead.
I guess what happens is next is I'm teaching them guitar, but at some point I start teaching them piano. I've taught all the kids a little piano,
Mm-hmm.
and down the road, someone seen us at a program in November. It was Thanksgiving program,
Mm-hmm.
and we went to see the concert and everything. And people were there, and they kept saying, "Hey, you guys should come in for Christmas and participate in the Christmas concert." And I was again like, "No, thank you, no, that's just a lot of work trying to get me."
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
saying no, and then the kids. My youngest was at the
They
time
wanted to do
about,
it.
about 8 years old. They said, "Yeah, Dad, we should do it."
Mm-hmm.
And then the wife said, "Yeah, we should." And so I'm like, "Oh, you got to be kidding! I can't
Yeah.
believe all y'all doing this." So I said, "Okay, I tell you what, we'll go home
Mm-hmm.
and we'll try to put something together and just see what it sounds like." And at the time, my son was really young with the piano. I just started teaching him chords and stuff like that, and he was learning to read it and everything. So he was the most likely candidate because he's the only one that didn't really have a different instrument.
Right.
So every one of the kids wanted to play the piano in the family thing. And I'm like, everybody cannot play the piano, right?
Just gonna have a whole bunch of piano
yeah,
players.
so it's like, no, hold on. So I said, we're going to leave Ezra, who was the young, he's like 8 at the time.
Uh-huh.
And he's just learning. But I
Aw.
figured if I could teach him chords, after I seen he could learn the chords, he really picked up really fast.
Wow.
And his feet could not even touch the ground. His feet are swinging when he plays.
Mm.
It's just normal kid stuff, right?
Mhm.
And so he picked up really fast. And the piano for us holds the rhythm
Mhm.
and progressions and everything for us. So, and the melody a lot of times. So he actually picked up really quick, and we decided, okay, we'll do it. So it was like we had a month to practice.
Mhm.
So we participated in the Christmas concert, and we did a song called "Do You Hear What I Hear?"
Oh, okay.
And we just put together a little, rendition of it, and it seemed like everybody enjoyed it, and afterwards, it was like 3 different people from 3 different churches that were at that concert, and each of them asked, could we come to their church and play?
Wow.
So that's how it started.
That opened that door.
It opened the door, and so we went from one church to the next, and every time we go to every one of those churches, it'd be 1 or 2 people from somewhere else, and they would always come and say, can you come to our church and play? And so that's how it started. So it wasn't planned at all. It was completely, I thought we'd be doing it one time,
Uh-huh.
and then
20 times.
Right. So now it just turned into a beautiful blessing. I didn't expect it, but like they say, God opens doors, and He knows what's
Yep.
good for you. And quite honestly, it's been a blessing for the whole family.
That's beautiful.
So we've been thankful to do it. But
That is so
so that's how it happened. That's how it started.
Nice. And that's just like how the scriptures say your gifts, will make room for you. And those
Right.
doors that God allowed to be open, He'll
Right.
open them, and the ones He'll shut, He'll
Shut 'em.
shut.
That's right.
That is so
That's right.
awesome. So
correct.
let's go, pedal back a little bit into like your history, like growing up and stuff.
Okay.
Did you have any kind of musical influence? Were anyone else in your family like musically inclined, or they play instruments or
Yeah, well, my
whatnot?
mother she was a singer. Her name was Yvonne, and my father, I found out when he passed away years ago that he was actually into a singing group too, but he was an artist also, and he was
Okay.
also a tailor.
Ooh.
Yeah, but he had passed away, and I didn't know all of this information until I went to the funeral because I didn't grow up with I grew up with a single family household, and so I hadn't been around my father for ages, but
Yeah.
I did go to the services in Mississippi, where both my mom and my father's side are both from that direction. But my mother was a singer, and she, in fact, sung with Thomas A. Dorsey. He was a person, who they considered to be the godfather of gospel, they call him, right? So yeah, so she used to sing, and but she chose not the lifestyle of a singer. And she told me that a long time ago. She didn't want. She had a family. She wanted to have a family and live that life. She didn't want it was pretty rough back then,
Yeah.
But she did the flying to New York thing, and they were grooming her and getting her ready.
Wow.
And so she decided she didn't want to do that. So, yeah. And there was another guy, Jack McDuff. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one side, and then the other side is also my father's side, who, their family moved from Mississippi to Detroit My mom's family moved from Mississippi to Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So at some point they met in Chicago, and but he was into modeling, art, and stuff like that. He was
Oh, he was a model
artist.
too?
Yeah, he did modeling.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I didn't, but it made sense because I knew him from being a tailor and an artist. I knew
Right.
he did other things, but that was his passion, and
Nice.
he made clothes,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a great drawer. He could paint and stuff like that,
Wow.
and so yeah, so that was interesting. I didn't know anything about the music until I went to
later
the
on.
services and found out he was in a singing group and all this. He has a
Mm.
really interesting background. He's a preacher's kid,
Okay.
so and
Little PK.
PK kid,
Yeah.
and he lived up to every bit of the stereotypical PK thing. He was a PK kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was a PK kid, and
Uh-huh.
so so he lived up to that hype completely.
Wow.
Honestly.
Oh, I know about, I know about the PKs.
right. So he was that, and
Mm-hmm.
and my mom was, pretty much, a basic mom, single mom, struggling, inner city stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
did a great job, and hats always off to her. But yeah, so that's kind of the background of my music and stuff, as far as I know. My family is an artistic family. I have a cousin right now in Las Vegas, and for years I've always heard about my auntie, where she makes these doll houses from scratch still today. Unbelievable.
Wow.
I mean, houses that are like, she makes the houses with, by hand. She saws the wood.
Uh-huh.
She has them with running water. She has the outside lights. The
Wow.
whole nine. She's something else, and she won't sell them or anything. So my whole family is
Wow.
like in this art now. Her daughters, they make everything from jewelry to clothing
Mhm.
and art. And so one of my cousins actually is in Las Vegas. Just got in, I think, last night, and she's doing a show there, some kind of a show. So, but yeah. So as I've gotten older, I realized that a lot of my family was
Artists.
artistically inclined. On my mom's side and my dad's side. So
Wow.
yeah, so. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's definitely beautiful.
And then I have family that's in the music business and stuff that I don't know them, so I don't really mention it. But yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. But
Yeah, we all-
yeah,
we all have
have
those.
that, right?
Yeah,
So
for
yeah,
sure.
so but yeah. So
So, like growing up, did your family practice any type of religion or faith,
so
anything like that?
yeah. So I grew up in a SDA family from 5 years old
Oh, okay. SDA
on
from.
up. Yeah. So I grew up in a SDA home.
Mhm.
Yes, basically, and
So how was that?
it was different back then, and we didn't have the technology we have now. So when I grew up, the Sabbath was like, oh man, the Sabbath. Because you can't do anything. You can't play, you can watch cartoons, TV, and all that stuff that seemed like it was so restrictive, right?
Yeah.
As times have changed now. We got, things more catered to for kids. You can maybe watch a little television if it's the right program and
Right.
things like that. So it was different. So then it was always a peace though on Sabbath that I never would forget. That was the one thing I remember is that when Sabbath came in, it was a peace, and there was a peace. Seems like I would acknowledge it when the Sabbath was going out, and I just remember that peace that it was always there. But like a lot of kids, they get older and they stray away, and I didn't intentionally stray away, but my mom, I think, had certain things going on in her life, so she wasn't completely dedicated in a certain way, and so I'm thinking about a little older and my mom makes a decision to tell me and my younger brother we can go to church if we want to, but she might not come all the time. So we're traveling on the bus, to go kind of a little distance away to go to church, but she didn't want to take it away from us. But she was saying she didn't necessarily always have the heart to want to go.
Totally, yeah.
So we did that for a little while, and then eventually we stopped going, because she's not going, and we're not forced to, and
Right.
things happen, and next thing you know, we're not going to church, and it just kind of just happened that way, and that's how I think we fell into the backsliding thing. And ironically, my younger brother, was more prone to go to church than I was. I was the one that was like, I was honest.
Uh-huh.
Church was boring to me, and so I would be like, it's boring, So I was the one that didn't necessarily want to go to church, and so it's really most interesting now that I'm the only one now that does go to church.
Oh, okay.
And so it's so funny to me that I would be the one going, and now I'm talking to them, and they're not going.
Like, y'all need to
And
go to church.
right, and I feel like I might have something to do with it. It's like maybe they didn't go because I'm the one that, But so it's really interesting. Yeah, but
Okay, that's interesting. Because I know my family, I didn't grow up in SDA. I kind of later, my mom actually brought us into an SDA church when I was, a teenager or whatnot.
Wow.
So it was a
Wow.
culture shock for me
Yeah,
because I'm
that-
used to going to church on Sunday.
yeah, that had to be different.
Yeah, I used to go to church on Sunday. And so I remember one time, she had woke us up on a Saturday and like, hey, let's go to church. And I was like, what? I'm
That's
used to watching my cartoons and,
Yeah.
going to the mall or
Yeah.
something, So that was definitely
Wow.
a different pace,
Right.
from what I was used to as a kid, going to church on Sunday
Sundays.
and then switching and going to church on Saturday. So it
Wow.
took me a minute,
That, my hat's off to you, because I always say that. I say, wow, how did they do the people coming from another background? Because I don't know if I would have done that if I wasn't introduced at such an early age. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's so much, the food that you don't eat,
Yeah.
programs, all the different things that you're used to, and all of a sudden, no, you can't do that.
Right.
You shouldn't do that. Like, so wow. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Because even though we didn't have like the ministry that I think that the SCA has about like the no eating the meats or the pork and
Oh,
stuff
yeah,
like that,
yeah.
we didn't do that anyway. We were kind of like, what is it called, pescatarians or like
Oh, yeah.
fish.
Oh,
So we
yeah.
didn't do, and then like chicken and things like that. But like all the unclean stuff, like
Right.
we kind of grew up that way anyway. We
Yeah.
didn't do that.
I
I
understand.
guess because of the history of like,
Oh.
it's not healthy to eat those things. So I think that was already like instilled in
Instilled
us.
in you, so
Yeah.
that was easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that wasn't really a big thing for us.
Wow. That's
But yeah,
amazing.
it's cool to
That's
hear that.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my family, they did. Coming from the South, they ate everything off of a pig, from the rooter to the tutor. Until I was 5 years old, all that changed. So I remember, the bacon.
Yeah.
They had hog head cheese, ham hocks, pig feet, pig ears, pig tails.
Yes.
They ate all of that stuff,
All of
that
it.
crazy stuff. And so at 5,
And even catfish
yeah,
and stuff too.
yeah, catfish. But my mother made a conscious and chitlins,
Yes.
which we didn't really have a lot of that, thank goodness. But
You're right. I'm like, ooh, they be smelling up
yeah,
there.
yeah, man. So, but that changed when my mother started going to church because of my grandmother. But I'm sorry.
Okay, well, that's beautiful. So, what are some of the things that you find inspiration from when you're like creating music, or like when you're in that zone, like with your kids or your family, when you're
Yeah.
starting to create music?
So I think what it is that, like I say, the background of the music. Sometimes it's in you, and maybe what you've been around. And the first time I wrote a song was 7. Don't ask me why I decided I wanted to write a song at 7 years old, but I did write a song, and it was like that kind of stuff was happening. I was singing around, imitating the people that were older than me, but that I had seen, growing up. The Jacksons and stuff like that, people like that. People that you see in the area and stuff. So you kind of grow up seeing and emulating. So I'm probably emulating stuff. And then at some point, I remember writing the song I wrote. The very first song I wrote was a gospel song. I can't remember. It was some kind of a song for God, but it wasn't a church day. I was over my grandmother's house, and I just wrote something, and then, song at the front of it and everything. But the inspiration of music and writing is something I've always had a passion for. And as I got more into music, I grew up, it was just instilled in me some kind of weird way. Everything from the instrument, how I got my music and everything.
Yeah.
So what inspires me is everything. I can't really pinpoint anything. That's why it's good that I have a better direction, because I grew up, around people and myself who were doing other music. I grew up around house music.
Yeah.
I was around some of those people that started that. Then I would, around people, I'll say one name, like R. Kelly's. I used to kind of coach him a little bit, mentor him a little bit, because he's a little bit young. He's like a little young, like my younger brother. And always singing for me. We were in the same choir in high school. That's how it happened. And Miss Leland McGlynn, which is Thomas A. Dorsey's niece, and just passed away this year. She actually was our choir teacher and director, and she taught us things that people weren't even learning in college yet. We were learning stuff in high school as freshmen that people weren't even learning in college. We were recording albums, and they come to the to the auditorium, and we were singing in Italian, French, doing sonata, singing opera.
Wow.
And so Rob used to always sing, and he always sing for me. He said, "Man, how it sound?" I think it was a show coming up, talent show, and he'd sing for me. I said, "You sound good, man, but you got to start writing." I was always telling him, "You got to start writing."
Yeah.
And at some point, I think that I told him that he was, I am, but that was something that I would always tell him. And I think he was probably a freshman then, and I was a little older. I might have been a junior or something like that. But I just remember people like him being around, because I was the one that knew I was always into music. So
Yeah.
people would, gravitate over and ask you things, and, that's kind of what happened. So inspiration of music is life to me. And the problem is that you can't record every second of everything that you do. You can, but everything is music, to be honest. And so when I'm writing for the family, I haven't really wrote an original. I have wrote some original stuff for us. I just haven't tried to do anything with it. But when we do songs from the hymnal, because we do a lot of more songs like that, then I'll just try to arrange it how I best think it feels. Because like I said before, the group for the family wasn't playing. So that's why the instruments are so widely, it's kind of weird.
Yeah,
Because
that's
nobody says, let's start a group, and I want a bass clarinet, give me a harp
Got
over
all the
here.
interesting instruments.
Right,
yeah.
right, that don't really, to
To
put the
mash 'em up.
instruments, to mash them together. So that was kind of, I think that helped, having a background with writing and arranging and producing music. I had to really think about, well, how am I going to put this together? So I started out with basic things and looking at the tones. The bass clarinet is a beautiful instrument, and the tone reminds me in the same direction, or should I say the pitch, reminds me in the same direction as like a cello. So I started to try to arrange it with that in mind,
Right.
to place it. And so in the clarinet, I'll have the offset of the other clarinet do the same thing. And sometimes they may do something slightly different, but so that gave me that part. Now the other thing is nobody ever hears the harp. So I said to myself, with this, I want the harp to be more showcased than usual. So I made an idea, conscious effort to make sure the harp had a place that would be heard and that was louder than normally. And I think that was my thinking of it. And then of course the piano, everybody hears the piano, and guitars, you always hear those things, right?
Yeah.
So so that was my mindset, and that's kind of what started it all and how we put it together.
Wow.
But yeah, so
That's beautiful. I love that. This is bringing everything and putting it together to create something.
yes,
Wow.
it was interesting.
Yeah, because those are very interesting instruments, and like you said, that like the pairing of them to try to have everyone have their kind of like little spotlight where they can hear
Right. Yes.
their talents
yes.
within the music. That's
Yeah.
that's a gift too, to be able
Yes.
to connect all that together, because not everybody can do that.
Well, I didn't know I was going to do it. I never, to put a band together, you're thinking rhythm instruments first. The piano, if you're doing drums,
Yeah, the
bass,
drums.
guitar, guitar, and all that. So you're not thinking this kind of thing, So that's what happened. And you can tell just by that being the case, that's not a man is thinking to do. So I was not thinking to do that. So,
Like, y'all gonna make me work with
right.
it.
Well,
You're gonna lose the work.
I just think everything was kind of, God pointing and directing. And then from the response I've received and we've seen, from when we present music, it's been really a blessing to us. And I mean, the first time I seen someone crying, that touched my heart. And when I started seeing people crying from church to church, we'll do music.
Yeah.
And I think two things, being in a family for one, people seem to be touched by that. And then God and the angels, like they say, they're singing and playing with us.
Yes.
So the whole thing is just, it's made to be something that's different. I think it's just God's plan that we're doing it. So I wouldn't have been doing it, to be honest.
That's
So.
good. God and the angels are playing with us. I love
Oh
that.
yeah,
I
they
love that.
definitely playing with us. Cause things I hear, I'm like, oh my goodness, did they hear that? Yeah, so.
Because I've seen certain things like that online where someone's playing or whatever, but then you like hear like extra stuff in the background. I'm like, oh, and it's a beautiful sound, but
Right.
sometimes you can't always put
No.
put a pinpoint and like, what is that?
What
Like,
did that?
oh,
Yeah.
So that's amazing that you can feel that and experience that, because
Yes.
that just shows you that's
Yeah,
that's a God-given
that's beautiful right there. That's a really
talent.
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It is.
So I know we're gonna wrap
Impressed.
up, but like, I guess my last question would be, what is something you would tell someone as like as a point of inspiration or motivation to pursue, their God-given talent or
Yeah.
God-given gifts? What would be something, or something you would tell your younger self even?
Oh,
Either one.
do it for, make sure you do it for the love because you love to do it. It's the most important thing. And for no, other than that, of course, I would say to always do it. Make a certain effort, a complete effort to make sure you're pleasing God. That's the first thing I want to say. I want to say that that's the utmost thing to do. You make sure you're pleasing God with what you do. And then from there, you do it, because you love it,
Right.
and for no other reason. And I've learned a lot, in that direction. I know I can't go into details about the other stuff right now. I don't have time, but I've done things in the world too, and I see the difference. And it's a huge difference, and there's no peace than what God can give you. So whatever your gift is, keep doing it, but make sure you're doing it to please and praise God for the gift He's given you to do and what He's given you to use to reach the people. And then from there, make sure that you love doing what you do. And that's it.
That's good. Yay.
Yeah.
That's really good. I love that. Love doing
Yes.
what you do and do it for the pleasing of God.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a very important thing to keep in mind too.
Yes.
Because sometimes I think, as a part of this life and things, we want to please other people, but like if it's not pleasing God, then it's just like,
Right.
like,
Right.
okay.
Right. Right.
You want to be able to have that type of heart posture and mind posture that, like, hey, I'm not just doing this because this is something you want me to do, but this is something that God has given me to do,
Right.
so that I can share it with you and
Exactly.
then be that message, be that light,
Exactly.
to someone else. Because it took me, I've always known that, doing, like you said, art and creativity was
Right.
something that God had instilled in me. But just being able to see the different doors, like you said,
Yeah.
the
Oh.
doors open, like,
Yes.
oh my God,
Oh,
like
yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be very tempting. It can
Yeah,
be some
it's like,
things,
what? All the things, but like taking God with you everywhere you go,
Right.
and just asking Him for that guidance
Well,
and direction.
yeah, because you have to trust Him. When you do things like art,
Mhm.
it's one of those things that it's either going to be lucrative or maybe not. Majority of the time, it's not lucrative. So the temptation comes because the world can offer you things that will supply that side of it, as far as having the finance and the money and all the beautiful things you think you want of the
Right.
world, right? So you can fall into that trap and you go in that direction, and when you go in that direction, it's just that, it's a trap. And so
Okay.
that's why you have to be careful, because it is so many ways that the enemy can set you up and you don't even know it till it's too late.
Thank you all again for joining me here on our spiritual podcast. I hope you found some inspiration here. Be sure to tune in every first and third Friday of the month for a new episode of our spiritual podcast. And if you haven't already, like, follow, and subscribe to our channels and on social media. And remember, as always, mind your inner space. Until next time.